welcome back. You're tuned in and listening to Bat Talk with Sharona. I'm your host. My name's Sharona. And as promised, I'm joined now by Natasha Paul, Sports Talk. Tasha, who has been a guest on this show before. It's always such a pleasure to have her. And so I'm thankful that she was able to find time in her very busy schedule to join me for today's show. Tasha, thanks again.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Sharona. As always, it's fun to join you and do what you do. I really appreciate you having me on.
Oh, thank you so much. It always is a good segment when you come on. Tell everybody listening out there, again, just a little bit about who you are. You write for Black Sports Online, or you did. Are you still doing that?
I am definitely still writing for BSO.
Okay, great.
That's not going anywhere. In fact, I am now covering the Miami Heat for Black Sports Online.
Oh,
so
cool.
I am just about at every Heat game possible, and that's interesting to say the least.
Yeah.
To say the least. And, I'm just enjoying it, doing different things. I've been blessed to be able to go out and cover different events like the SBs this year, and that was absolutely fun, one of the most fun things I've ever done. And, just covering the Miami Heat, always fun, to be honest. And it's different, seeing things from the locker room perspective.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah. Yeah, the Heat are it's interesting. I haven't yet. Usually when my fantasy football teams are done. Fortunately, this year I still actually have two teams in the playoffs. I wasn't aware that my Yahoo team had made it. I hadn't been getting email notifications, so I still have two teams in the playoffs. I'm playing for the championship in both of them. But usually once, I'm done with fantasy football and the NFL, the regular season ends and, playoffs begin, I really turn my attention to basketball. That's when the SEC schedule begins and really when the NBA teams are pushing for playoffs. So we didn't plan on talking about basketball today. I hope you'll come back and we can do that, though. Really would love to get your perspective on the Heat and talk some NBA action with you.
Absolutely, anytime. I'm always down to join you, Sharona.
So awesome. All right, so the first thing that we're going to talk about today, I tweeted this out this morning. What was the biggest sports story of the year? I got a couple of 5 answers, which I think is kind of interesting. I've talked some soccer here on the show, and obviously the FIFA corruption story is huge. But I don't know if that's the one that I would pick. I'll share with you guys what I'm going to pick. I want to talk to Tasha about it first. What do you think are the biggest sports stories of the year?
I'll tell you what. Okay, so definitely FIFA is a big story in sports, but because soccer is not that big in the United States, it's not that big for us.
Mm-hmm.
Like Sepp Blatter and his corruption, we could care less about it because we're the United States of America and we don't care about soccer. So that's a big story to the rest of the world, and God bless them. But in right here, homebound, we care about the NFL.
Yes.
And the NFL has gone through it and back the last couple of years, and it didn't get any better this year. The issues with domestic violence, it didn't go away. The issues with athletes getting in trouble didn't go away. And quite honestly, athletes or NFL players, for the most part, they're good guys. They're not out running through the streets doing crazy stuff. But what happens is when you have the age-old saying, one bad apple spoils the bunch. Yeah, it spoils the bunch. So here you have Greg Hardy, who comes off this case, and, he shows up to court in sneakers. I think it was Air Force One. Like, okay, I'm the man, and I know you guys can't do anything because you have no case against me because I paid off this girl. So, so when you have stuff like that going on, people are looking at it, okay, and they rant and they rave and, the NFL's this and the NFL's that. But at the end of the day, there's still 20 million people watching the NFL every weekend.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And it's still a multi-billion-dollar industry, and Robert Kraft and Jerry Jones and Arthur Blank and all these guys are still multi-billionaires. So we can bemoan all we want about all the bad things going on in the NFL, the domestic violence, drugs, whatever it is. You know, so many guys in the NFL got suspended this year for PED use or substance abuse or something like that. And, you know, at the end of the day, that it doesn't matter if they're still watching. And that was one of the bigger stories in the sports. But what and surprise, I'm going to say this, and this is a huge story, Sharona. So pat women on the back for actually mattering in sports for a change.
Yeah.
And it's Serena Williams. Serena Williams came out the gate. I mean, what she was poised to do was one of the it was going to be a moment in Black history. It really was going to be a huge moment in Black history, because not only are you a woman, but you're an African American woman, and here you are. You could possibly win all the majors, and everyone was really wanting her to do it, but sadly, you know, it didn't happen. And
but it doesn't really detract from how dominant she's been.
No, it does not at all. You know, she's not perfect, but she's still amazing, and she's still
amazing.
Exactly, she's still one of the most highly recognized athletes in the game. She's right up there with LeBron James. If you're talking like big stars, Serena Williams is just as big as a star as LeBron James. I
would postulate bigger because, and let's face it, we talk about this, and I've talked about Serena a lot on this show. Women of color, Black women, women of color, traditionally have never gotten the accolades they deserve, ever. And for Serena to get those really is huge. I mean, LeBron James is a fantastic athlete, no question. Let me ask you this. Who do you think is the better athlete, Serena or LeBron?
Oh,
I think it's Serena. I would pick Serena. I think that she is a better athlete. Now, I think LeBron James is a fantastic athlete, and he's a great NBA player, but I think Serena is a more overall dominant athlete.
Okay, if you say it like that, to say dominant athlete, then it's definitely Serena, because what Serena has that will edge LeBron is that she doesn't have that chip on her shoulder. Serena will go out there and literally, let me, for lack of a better word, she will murk her opponent.
Yes.
She will give
the perfect
and
word.
I've watched her play, and you know, she sometimes gives them a sliver of hope just so she can play with them.
She toys with her opponents. She toys with her opponents. It's awesome.
So, and absolutely, when you're talking about dominance, LeBron doesn't have it like Serena, because for so many years he had that huge chip on his shoulder, and I mean, he really still kind of does have this chip on his shoulder. He just has not gotten over it, in my opinion. I mean, yeah, he won 2 championships in Miami, but you know what's happening is because he came to Miami and won 2 championships with the help of Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, everyone's saying, well, you can't do it alone. You know, people are really big jerks for that, because nobody can. You can't win a team sport by yourself. It's just humanly impossible, unless you go into the movie multiplicity and multiply yourself literally. Then maybe you have a chance. But he's never going to win anything on his own. But because they have this this idea that Jordan did it on his own, you know, forget about Scottie Pippen and all the other 13 guys on the team at the time.
Yeah.
Because they didn't help him at all.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's so interesting that you bring up Scottie Pippen. Yeah, LeBron, as fantastic as he is, you definitely have to have talent around you. And I would argue that, you know, Chris Bosh probably helped LeBron win his championships in Miami as much, if not maybe even more so, than Dwayne Wade, who is a fantastic basketball player in his own right. And I don't mean to take, but you know, during those years, and I haven't checked, I don't know what Wade's playing percentage time is this season. You might be able to help us with that, but you know, he just didn't play that much.
Yeah, he took a lot of PTO back in the day, and you know, the thing is, when the big three were in Miami, they played a lot of minutes. They played upwards of 35 minutes easy every game, if not more, 40 minutes plus. So and D Wade, I mean, he's the type of player like Derrick Rose, and the fact that D Wade has actually survived this long in the league, being the type of athlete that he is, the way he plays the game, he's blessed. He really is blessed, because basketball players who play the game the way he does tend to get injured a lot, and that's why you see he got injured a lot. But his minutes this year has actually gone down a lot, because he doesn't need to do it all by himself anymore. The Heat have a lot of talent on the team, because they're not paying everybody that max contract.
Right.
So they were able to go out and get a bench. Imagine that. A real life bench that they can rotate.
There was a lot of talk when the Heat signed the big three. This has been a few years ago, of course. The big three, when the Heat signed LeBron, and they really did hijack the salary cap in order to make that a possibility. And but what happens? Natasha knows this. I'm a big Spurs fan. They've worked the salary cap too. They just don't do it in such a flashy way.
No, they don't. And then they actually, the Spurs have I don't know, they convinced Tim Duncan, who's by right an absolute superstar. He always takes less than what he can get always. So it's just the way the NBA works. It's an interesting machine. But let's get back to Serena, because we don't want to take away from her.
No. Yeah.
I mean, she absolutely, one of the biggest stories of the year is what she has done. And a lot of people, when she was not able to do it, they kind of were like, they wanted to blame Drake.
Well, let's face it, it's always Drake's fault, right? I mean, come on.
It's always Drake's fault. And then, what's so funny about that to me is that in the past, when athletes have floundered or whatever, they blame women. They blame their women. For example, they blame Kim K for every bad thing that ever happened to every athlete that she dated.
Yeah.
And now you have Serena not accomplishing what everyone wanted her to do, and it's like, blame Drake. So I'm like, wow, you can really tell this is a
Well, that's true equality, yeah. Right.
We get to blame Drake for ruining Black history in America.
I love that you picked Serena. I do, and I agree with you. I was going to pick Deflategate, but you know what? I agree with Natasha. I think that it has to be Serena. She was picked as Sports Illustrated's Sports Person of the Year, deservedly so. And then who knew that there was a horse Twitter? Horse Twitter came out and had, was all up in arms about it. And, we had to basically tell them to have so many seats. And, it was pretty fascinating, the reaction to that. But, I think back to Serena being dominant, I had a discussion on this show earlier on in the year, very early in the year, about who was the most dominant athlete of our generation, of this generation, and I think it's Serena. Yeah, I think it has to be Serena.
I would absolutely agree with you. She's the only one who's done it. She consistently does it. I mean, she was really hurt at one point. She was really injured, and then to come back from her injury and just dominate. I mean, she's not getting any younger, but who could tell? Who could really tell?
Yeah. It's very, very, very interesting. I want to ask you
why.
Go ahead.
I wanted to touch on Deflategate real quick. I'll tell you why I did not pick Deflategate as a huge story. Deflategate was it was nonsense. It was the worst story ever. And, I felt like they were trying to use this absolute rubbish stupidity to take away from all of what's really wrong with the NFL.
I don't disagree with that.
It was a complete detractor. Are you really going to tell me that somebody in the middle of the game felt the ball and was like, oh, this ball feels like it's 0.4 PSI less than what it needs to be? You shut up.
Yeah. Oh, no, yeah. I mean, and it didn't go down like that. Before the game, there were tampering charges filed. The Colts filed. I mean, the NFL would never have taken on Tom Brady or the New England Patriots if the Indianapolis Colts hadn't filed formal tampering charges. I mean, that's what started it all, and
it started it all. I mean, listen.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting.
The Colts had a lot of sour grapes over that. Look, you got beat fair and square. You got beat fast.
Yeah, they did, absolutely. Yeah.
And it didn't matter if the ball was deflated properly. There was nothing that was gonna save you from that beat down. Okay. Yeah. With that being said, it went through the whole grinders. It went through Roger Goodell twice, and then it went to federal court. And guess what? Federal court gave Roger Goodell the big, F you. Like, what kind of crap is this? And that's why Tom Brady played an entire season. Deflategate was absolutely garbage. And, everyone's like, oh, the Patriots are cheaters. Guess what? Every NFL team cheats. And they all
in different ways. Yeah, but the Patriots do it on a level that other teams don't do. And it's pretty interesting that the case was heard by a federal judge who is big buddies with Robert Kraft, who owns the New England Patriots, and who has donated large amounts of money to his political campaign.
That I honestly don't even know how that happened, because the case was heard in New York, as far as I remember. So the case was heard in New York, and it is what it is. I think what happened with the Patriots and the NFL, first of all, Robert Kraft was a huge supporter of Roger Goodell.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, all the owners have been, because Roger Goodell has legitimately made them billions of dollars.
Billions.
Say what you want about Roger Goodell's managing of the NFL. He makes money for the league.
He does.
He's very good at making money for the league.
Yeah, and let's face this, Roger Goodell doesn't do anything without the owner's consent. And he would have never gone after Tom Brady or the Patriots if other owners weren't telling him to do it. He just wouldn't have done that. And so and we don't know really who was encouraging that, which, he's beholden to, there are 32 majority owners in the National Football League, and he's beholden to all of them. And so we'll never know. Maybe we will. There was an ESPN report that came out. There were some anonymous, owners cited in there, talking about how they had for years been subjected to, different things, cheating allegations against the Patriots, and, they wanted Roger Goodell to put a stop to it. It was all mishandled so egregiously that, now, do I think Tom Brady cheated? Yes. Do I think the New England Patriots have cheated? Yes. Their misfortune is that they do it on a level that other teams are unhappy about, and so it's kind of that internal, thing going on. But, and I said this last week, the thing that's so annoying to me about it is I legitimately think Bill Belichick is a great coach. And so I don't even think that they need to.
They probably don't need to. You're right, but I guess they.
But you know what they say? If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, right?
True enough.
I guess. I don't know. There was let's go ahead and move on. I agree. I think Serena has to be the biggest story in sports this year. If she's not, there's something wrong. The NFL is always, kind of king. And you mentioned the Greg Hardy deal, domestic violence in the NFL, obviously a big story, and getting the discussion and the recognition that it deserves. Domestic violence. We're going to talk about domestic violence. In a little bit more detail here in a few minutes. There's an well, let's go ahead and talk about it now. Shoot, why not? There was an interesting article that came out. I don't know if you had a chance to read it. Robert Plinko, I hope I pronounced that correctly, at Sports Illustrated, wrote it. He's a very, very good writer. I enjoy his work. And he did an interview with, he tried to contact, I believe, 7 or 8, let me pull this article up real quick, women who had lodged domestic violence complaints against athletes, NFL athletes. And only one of them was willing to talk to him, and he wrote an article about it. It's very, very interesting. Here it is. I just found it. It was an NFL player and his girlfriend. There was an incident. A maid had called the police. The cops came, and as it often happens, you know, the thing about women who are raped or who are the subject of other violent acts is that they're treated so much differently than other victims of crime. And this is a great way to talk about it because this article really illustrates it. She, the police came, they took her to the police station. She made a statement. It was being discussed. I mean, they had been picking out an engagement ring, and all of that. So they arrested him. And what happened after that is the most interesting to me, anyway, part of this article. And you guys know I don't talk about it much. I don't write about it. I wrote one article about it, I think, my own experience with domestic violence. And I can tell you that this experience is fairly common based on my experience. After the incident happened and he was arrested, she was flooded with messages and phone calls and communications from his agent, from his friends, from other players' girlfriends, and, you know, from so many people telling her that she better not pursue this. Basically intimidated, you know.
Yes. I think I know which article you're talking about. I definitely just think I know which article you're talking about. And I've heard about this before where wives or girlfriends who have been domestically abused felt that they were, you know, trapped in a corner, like, you know, everyone's on them, like, don't say anything, keep quiet, you know. We gotta protect the team. It's all, you know, we gotta protect the team, blah, blah, blah. It's always, it's not about you gotta protect yourself, it's protect the team. So,
well, in my situation, I was very close to the mother and the sister, and both of them appealed to me, you know, not to take this, you know, any further, not to do anything, not to harm this person's career, this guy, this fairly well-known person, not to hurt his career, and it worked. It was successful, you know.
Yes, I mean,
but that's and this is the thing, you know, you're not supposed to, in any other situation, you're not supposed to intimidate victims of crime. Imagine the mother of a dude who robbed your house calling you and saying, don't ruin my son's life. I mean, that just almost never happens, and if it does, it's dealt with swiftly and decisively. You know, we understand that you're not supposed to do that, but we feel we're very comfortable with treating women and listen, rape and violence, it happens to men too. There are women out there who abuse men, but the numbers are far larger for women, and we're women, and we're going to approach this from that perspective. You know, it's almost like women who have that happen to them, they are not treated like you know, victims in other situations.
You're right. I mean, with domestic violence, so many people become involved, and you're right. It's always a family member calling, aunt, cousin, sister, everybody's calling on behalf to plead. We're all going to talk to him. It's never going to happen again. So many people become involved in it. And then they guilt trip you.
Yeah.
Really guilt trip you into like, okay, well, you know this person, he's not going to do this again, and you just fall into a trap. Domestic violence is a sick and twisted game. It's so sick and twisted. And, I've watched, some of my own friends get involved in it, and you cannot tell that person anything. Once their mind has been made up, once they've been convinced that, everything will be okay, then they always go back. And you look like, we heard these stories growing up. They talked to us about it in school, and here you are allowing yourself to be a statistic. Yeah. And we all look at the person like, how is this happening? But you never know how to feel unless you're right there in that situation.
That is so true.
And so many people are on your case. Like, you really do get bullied into not doing anything.
There is no typical victim. We have this mindset that there's a typical victim and a victim should act this way. And there's a very interesting article. I've read it. It's probably been about a week or so ago, and I don't remember where it was, but it was there was a serial rapist out there, and a young woman who had been in ProPublica. ProPublica did. It was fantastic. I'll tweet all these articles out, by the way, as the show is being played. And there was a very young victim. I think she was 16 or 17. Not the typical victim that this serial rapist went after. They were typically older, but she was, I think, 17, had been in a number of foster homes. Her backstory was really kind of tragic. And he raped her, and she told her foster mother, her current foster mother, who really comes across as a very, sympathetic. And anyway, the police investigated, and she was forced to recant her charges because of some inconsistencies, which are really kind of common in these situations. Well, when they finally caught the guy, one of the sick things that this guy did was tape it and take pictures and stuff. But when they finally caught the guy, they found the tape and the pictures that he had taken of raping her. And but no, it's even worse, because I had forgotten the most sickening part of it. They charged her with a crime for false reporting her own rape, and it was the most disgusting thing. I can tell you from personal experience, I don't mean to make this is one of the reasons why I don't talk about it, is because I don't want it to be about me, but I can tell you from personal experience that when it happens to you, it's really hard to believe that it's happening to you. It's really hard to process that the person that you loved or liked is capable of doing that, and so often they use that love as the motive and the impetus behind the reason why I got stalked and chased down the road, and my apartment was broken into, is because he loved me so much, which is like the most sickest thing imaginable. But when you're in that situation, you literally have no idea how to handle it. It is pretty interesting. You sit there and you think, is this happening? And you try to make excuses. It's definitely a situation where you know about domestic violence, you know about rape, you know about sexual harassment in the workplace, but that partner in that law firm that comes up to you and puts his arm around you and brushes against your breast, or what have you, you're like, did that happen? Did dude just really do that? and we often do question ourselves. As to whether or not it's really happening to you. It's pretty weird. Anyway, I didn't mean to make that, about me, but it's just an example of how, and I think we socialize women to question ourselves.
Of course. Because even anytime there's any sort of abuse, it's always like, well, what did you do that caused it? What did you do to make him angry,
Mhm. Yeah, what did I do wrong? How could I have acted differently so that this didn't happen? There was I don't know if you've been on social media this morning. There was an interesting interaction. I don't know where it came from, but apparently a young female, 13, 14, maybe 15 years old, was, I guess depending on your perspective, there was a back and forth. A man was saying that, 14-year-old female hops in your bed, you're going to hit that or, something. Whereas women were pointing out that, he's the adult in the situation. She's 14. It's your responsibility not to take advantage of a child. And she is a child. 14 is a child.
Yeah, 14 is a child.
And so it is interesting how, how we approach these things. There was an article on the Broadly channel for Vice that was talking about. I see his name. There are a lot of names that I'm not all that familiar with. I had seen the name James Dean out there floating around on social media and stuff. I was not really all that familiar, with who he was. I am now because I read this article, and then it was a discussion about consent, especially in the adult entertainment industry, porn. And I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at that. It was pretty interesting, and I think back to Mike Tyson and the woman that he raped, and how so many people were like, well, she got what she was asking for going to his hotel room. It's like if a woman says yes to one thing, men in society think that means she says yes to everything. Like women don't have agency over their own bodies. It's pretty.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Exactly. Well, if we say yes to come in and hang out with you, then obviously that means you want more. And
she wants the D.
As a woman, you have to be so weary about going to a man's house because it immediately, in their mind, the only thing that you could possibly want by going to their house is to sleep with them. That's the only thing. So,
Yeah, but I hate to say that. As a practical matter, you have to be careful. Look, there's no question. But we shouldn't have to worry about whether we go to somebody's house. We should be able to go. It's like that whole discussion, don't go out wearing, quote, unquote, slut clothes or you're going to get raped. Why should we have to bear that burden? Why not just not rape? We should be able to go to the house and...
This is a timeless question, Sharona. I think they've probably been asking that since Eve allegedly picked the fruit off the tree. I think it goes back that far, but, it's just the society we live in. No matter where you go, it's always a patriarchal society. And
I think it does go back that far. It does go back. It does, absolutely. Adam and Eve, evil Eve gave Adam the apple and made that motherfucker eat it.
Exactly.
He didn't have any control over his own actions. It's all her fault.
I saw a meme. I saw a meme on social media, and I thought it was the funniest thing. Drake's Hotline Bling has been like one of the most popular songs. And they had a picture. I don't know if you're you read the Bible a lot, but if you're familiar with Hosea, and he had his wife and he left and he went out of town and she was prostituting herself, And the Bean said, ever since I left the city, you started going out and wearing less. I was like, no, they did not use this song for the Bible. I died. But, it is what it is. Like, from the dawn of time, since God said, let there be light, it became our burden.
I'm telling you, it's always the woman's fault, right? Natasha, I didn't put this on the production notes, but also an interesting social media discussion from this morning, the difference between how these brands, these companies package and sell products to women versus men. And I can tell you, I shop far more often in the male departments for whatever it is, shaving cream, razors. Now I do, right now I'm using a woman, quote-unquote, so-called woman's razor. Male razors shave better, they shave closer, they're just overall better and cheaper. But I also have a tendency to cut myself, so I have to be careful. But I'll buy male shaving cream. I shop in the young boys department because I'm just fortunate to be petite and be able to wear the 14 to 16 size. And, I never, hardly ever anymore buy female jerseys. I always buy the male versions. They're made better. They're roomier to allow for, women have breasts. The NFL clothing line does not recognize that. Those clothes don't fit me. And so I hardly ever shop it anyway. But, it's just cheaper. They're better made, and, it's crazy.
When I was in college, all the girls used to just buy regular gear and just tailor make it for our bodies because nothing ever worked. So we would just kind of like cut the shirts and fix them up to where it looks cute on a girl, because that's always been the thing. There has never been any like cute sports gear for women, and they come out with stuff and they're like, oh, these baby tees. I'm like, that's not cute.
Ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Most of it's trash anyway, and just so poorly made that, I wouldn't buy it for my dog.
Not for the dog.
And I love my dog. Listen, my dog probably has better stuff than I do, but, it's crazy. We could spend so much time on that, but it was a very interesting article that came out. It was in the Washington Post that was comparing, the difference between kids' scooters, boy scooters versus girl scooters. And if you paint it pink, you get to charge $40 more bucks than if it's just, a black scooter for a young boy. And it really is pretty disgusting how these companies do take advantage of that.
Yes, they do. But it's the marketing machine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to talk to you a little bit about the Steve Harvey thing, and then talk about. I know, right? And then talk a little bit about R. Kelly, Justin Bieber, and other, and then other male stars who just do awful things that largely get a pass. But you let Serena, and what was it? She did a very famous dance, and she got all kinds of shit for it. So I want to talk.
I think it was the Dougie, or no? Was it the Dougie? I can't remember.
It wasn't the Dougie. It was something else. It wasn't the Quan. I don't think.
No, it wasn't the Quan. God, I can't remember. But
you know what I'm talking about. I remember when it happened, and people were just all up in their underoos about it, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And it's like. And we're not going to talk about this, but it's, the Brittany Griner, Gloria Johnson thing is pretty crazy too. Maybe you'll come back and we can talk about that when we talk about the NBA, when we talk about the WNBA and Gilbert Arenas. We haven't even brought that name up. I talked about him last week too. That would be an interesting topic of discussion. But Steve Harvey, I don't like Steve Harvey. I think he's the worst. He was all over social media because of what happened with the Miss Universe contest.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it was staged or not?
It was definitely not staged. I watch pageants. I've watched pageants since I was a little girl because that everybody else in the world
fun.
probably watches pageants other than, it's another thing. Like, pageants are really big worldwide, and we love them. Everybody in the world loves them. You know, about 1 billion people.
I used to watch
worldwide.
them all the time.
I think it's about 1 billion people worldwide who watches the Miss Universe pageant. This is a global pageant, so it's that big. And so I've watched them since I was a little girl. I have never in my life seen anything like that. When I was watching it happen, like, I tell you, Sharona, the minute he walked on stage, I knew what he was about to do. And I was like, God, is this really about to happen right now? And when he said it, I was like, it happened. It's like, you just don't understand how crazy. How crazy. And I mean, if you go back to my Twitter, the night that this happened, I was like, no!
Oh, God, I'm going to cry from laughing. It really was the most.
It was the most epic fail in live television history.
You had one job, read 3 words, and you couldn't even do that right.
Yes, he had one job, and it was nobody else's fault but his own. And, you know, as I was watching the pageant, I'm thinking to myself, I think Miss Philippines, because her responses to the questions were brilliant. For some, you know, when you're asked something on the spot and you have to answer it immediately and you had no idea what you were about to get asked and sound intelligent on top of that, I thought her responses were brilliant compared to the other girls. Miss Columbia, I absolutely thought she was a stunning woman. She's beautiful. She's absolutely beautiful. And that isn't to take away from Miss Philippines. Miss Philippines, I looked at her and I said, gosh, she looks like the classic old school blonde girl. Like, I could totally
she does.
see her.
Yeah.
She looks like a Bond girl. She's beautiful.
She's very beautiful. They're all beautiful.
They are. They absolutely are. They're beauty queens. They're supposed to be beautiful. So I'm watching this and I'm like, wow. You know, when Miss Columbia won, or supposedly won, I said, okay, I could see it, but I really did think Miss Philippines should have been the rightful winner, which she ended up being the rightful winner. But man, that was an epic fail. It was so bad. It was so bad. And you know what? Live television, it's really hard to be on point in live television.
It is. Yeah.
This is why I don't think I could ever do it. I give Ryan Seacrest all the props in the world. I don't know how he does it. That man is brilliant.
It's very hard. You know, I got an opportunity to call a college all-star game, college football all-star game a couple of years ago, and have done some Rabble broadcasting this year. And being live and being on all the time and, you know, having to be at the top of your game, it's a lot harder than it sounds. And so I try to be a lot more forgiving these days of broadcasting gaffes and things that happen. But that's different from looking at a card and reading a name.
And you just got to read the line. First runner-up, Miss Columbia. The winner is Miss Philippines. And then not only do you screw up the announcement, but you go and apologize and you spell both countries wrong.
Wrong! I mean, listen.
And you know, this like I you know, I love American people. I love America. It's
a great country. A great country.
No, it's not a great country. It's the greatest country in the world. It is. I have been overseas. I have lived overseas. America is the greatest country in the world. But with that being said, we're also very close-minded to everything else but ourselves. We only care about America.
Yeah,
nothing else outside
really
of these borders matter. In fact, when I say nothing else outside the borders matter, not even Alaska and Hawaii really matter that much.
Really
They're
don't.
too far.
No, or Puerto Rico.
Yeah, Puerto Rico is nothing. They're just a territory. Let's be honest.
Well, but if they were anything else, they might have already been. We like our 50. I mean, we pretend to like our 50. If they were anything else, they might already be considered a state.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Anyway,
they're
we don't
right
want to get
there.
into that.
Exactly. But what it is like when Steve Harvey tweeted that, I was like, this just goes to show you how little Americans care about the rest of the world.
He couldn't. And listen, man couldn't even point out Colombia or the Philippines on the map. We all know that.
No, not at all. And you know, I'm from Guyana, and I was born and raised there.
Mm-hmm.
And every time anyone has ever asked me where I'm from, the minute I say Guyana, they always look at me and say, "No, I didn't ask you your name," because they always assume I'm saying Guyana, number one.
Right.
And the second thing, do you remember when Ghana beat the United States in the World Cup?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so I'm watching this, and I'm like, oh, my God, good for Ghana, blah, blah, blah. You know, I really wanted the U.S. to win, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden I start getting all these text messages, congrats, congrats. I'm like, what happened? What did I do?
What did I do?
And you know, I had so many people texting me to tell me congratulations for Ghana beating the U.S. And I'm like, listen, as much as I would think it was very interesting for me to be from Ghana, I'm actually from Guyana, which is not even anywhere near Ghana. Ghana is in Africa. And
yeah,
Guyana
exactly.
is in South America. Like, you know, that's how little nobody cares about. I took geography. I took world geography in college because I've always that's one of the things they teach you in schools around the world. Geography is a very big focal point in schools around the world. They want you to know where everything is. So I took world geography when I was in college, and it just used to crack me up how little people really knew. It's so funny, but you know, Steve Harvey. It sucks that it has to be you, but it was really funny. The memes were hilarious. Thanks for the good laugh.
It was very funny. Steve Harvey has a lot of very damaging ideas about women. We're not going to get into all of that, but yeah, it was very interesting. One more thing. Well,
act like a lady, think like a man, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. Well, very, very, very recently, like in this past year, he did this thing where he had men come in and basically tell women what was wrong. It was awful. It's the worst thing that you'd, not the worst thing, one of the worst. Anyway, well, I don't want to talk too much about Steve Harvey, because I want to ask you about R. Kelly, Justin Bieber, and more. A very interesting article talking about R. Kelly on, I think it was on Broadly, one of the websites that I frequent, asking whether R. Kelly's career was finally over because of, I mean, for decades, you know, he's been abusing young, underage girls, but people have still bought his records. Do you think that his career? Yeah. I don't think his career's over. I'll just go ahead and put that out front. Do you think that and we should mention there was an interview on HuffPost this week that he walked out of because he didn't want to answer any questions about that. Do you think his career's over?
No, not at all. People love R. Kelly. Love R. Kelly. R. Kelly is like one of those people, and he kind of did it the right way. He got in trouble. No one wants to say if he was really on that video. They don't want to say it's him. Everyone thinks it's him, but they're like, oh, well, we can't prove it. It's blurry. You can't really see. It's dark, blah, blah, blah. But there's a video of a man peeing on a 14-year-old girl. So it kind of looks like R. Kelly, kind of looks like R. Kelly's house. Could be not. So we all know he married Aaliyah when she was like, what, 15, 16, something like that. Definitely wasn't old enough. So, you know, you know that R. Kelly's got some suspicious activity in his past, but people love him. And
they do, and they buy
how much
music.
They love him. Look, they even did a whole spoof about his trial on Boondock. And
that's crazy.
People will make fun of it, but they'll look past it. It's like, well, what R. Kelly did right is R. Kelly laid low for many, many years. He laid super low. You didn't hear about him in the news. You didn't hear anything about what R. Kelly was doing. And then he came back, and everyone's like, oh, but we missed you so much, Robert. Come back.
Yeah, it really, well, and we could talk about Chris Brown, Justin Bieber, I mean, this is not uncommon, right?
It's not. And, listen, it's a man doing something to a woman. People are very forgiving. People
exactly
are very
right.
forgiving. If there's no video evidence, we are very forgiving.
Extremely.
We saw Rihanna's face, but, we didn't actually see Chris Brown throw a punch. And then, we've heard of all the stuff Justin Bieber's done, but nobody's actually seen it for themselves, So, and the list goes on and on. If there's no video, the only reason Ray Rice is not in the NFL right now is because there's a video.
A video.
If there was no video, Ray would be happily running on somebody's team.
Well, look how the Greg Hardy thing changed. Before you had so many people. She's a crack whore. She was just in it for the money. But once the pictures were released and you saw the bruises and the damage that was done to her body, the tide shifted. Visual evidence so often matters, and it doesn't just matter for women. We see that in the Black Lives Matter movement when you're talking about police corruption and the shooting of Black Americans, not just Black Americans, Americans of color, Americans who don't fit the white, typically male profile.
Yep, absolutely. That you're right. It's the typical white male profile is what's dominated. And even it does not matter. All the protesting, just look at what happened with Sandra Bland. She shows up in her cell dead, but the grand jury's not indicting anybody. There's no evidence.
I wanted to talk to you about Sandra Bland. I almost put that on our production notes, but there's just only so much heartbreak and horror that I can handle in a day's time, and that situation, that just breaks my heart.
Yeah, I mean, all the situations, the killing of a young Black man just because he was walking the street with a black hoodie, and now you have George Zimmerman going on Twitter, going berserk. Honestly,
it's crazy.
The man is a psycho.
He is a psycho.
Legitimate psycho. And guess what? Jury in Sanford? You let him go. You let him commit a crime, and you let him get off scot-free. And now, because of double jeopardy, he can never be tried again.
Never.
We all know he did it on purpose.
Of course we do. There's no question whatsoever, but that we know that. And, when I was given serious thought to that, I wanted to ask you, and so I'm going to go ahead and ask you, do you think there's ever going to be equality in the justice system for people of color?
No, absolutely not. I don't. It's not, because you're talking about something that has been going on for centuries.
Yes.
Supposedly, they gave slaves freedom in 1863, was it? Right? I think I'm right. Sometime around then.
Sounds right. I'd have to look that up.
But supposedly, I mean, we're talking about the 1800s now. So from the 1860s to the 1960s, you finally start getting some quote-unquote civil rights. And what happens? The two most vocal civil rights leaders are assassinated.
Yes,
Not by accident.
Exactly.
That's done by design. You know what? They literally, and for example, Malcolm X, he was very vocal, and he was vigilant and militant, and
Martin Luther King was growing closer to what he espoused than his peaceful. I honestly have always thought this. I still think this. I think the government was behind it. The FBI was tracking these guys for decades. And
I've heard stories where they used to send the FBI used to send Malcolm X's wife, evidence, because we know he was a bit of a womanizer. But
they both were. They both were.
So they used to send his wife all sorts of damning stuff to try to get her to turn on. Like, it was bad. So so you get these civil rights laws in the 60s, and what has changed, Sharona? Nothing. From
Nothing.
1960 to now, we are in the 21st century, and nothing has changed.
It's really not changed. It hasn't. It's you know.
It's just
I want to think that it can. I want to think that we're better than that, but you know, some days I don't know, and I find it very, very, very hard to disagree with you there. Tasha, it is always such a pleasure to have you on. I could talk to you for hours. I seriously could, but I don't want to keep you too long. So tell everybody once again out there where they can find you. I saw you tweeting about the bowl game last night. Great. I'm sure we're going to get some great stuff, and probably that's out there, and I just haven't seen it because, you know, I don't get a chance to see everything, your coverage of the Heat. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Well, I'm on Twitter at Sports Talk Tosh and on Instagram at Sports Talk Tasha. You can always find me there. I'm always tweeting. I'm always at the games. If you ever come to the AAA, tweet me and come find me, usually sitting in Section 106 in Media Row.
Oh, fun.
Say hi to me. Yeah, you know, I'm always around, and I love interacting with you guys on social media. So tweet me, write me on Instagram. I will respond.
All right. I wanted to talk to you about being a woman on social media, but we just didn't have time. Maybe you come back after the first of the year, and we can do that. Have a wonderful holiday.
Same to you. It's my birthday on Saturday. So
happy birthday. Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Thanks again. Bye-bye.